structures would look like if someone attempted to draw them out. At the same time, I'll give you some information on the importance of a Butylite. I'd like to start with just some background information. There's a Butylite, and its brand name, Corvert. For those interested, the chemical name of a Butylite is N dash bracket 4 dash bracket 4 dash bracket ethyl parentheses heptyl and parentheses amino and bracket dash 1 dash hydroxybutyl and bracket phenyl and bracket methane sulfonamide. So if we get into the skeletal structure, I want you guys to make some assumptions on what you think the molecular geometry would look like if we were to draw the Vesper theory. If we look at these stairs down here, we can remember that ends and bends represent carbons. So there's at least 5 or 6 carbons down there. And we can also remember that each carbon has each carbon has 4 attachments to it, which means we can only physically see 1 or 2 other carbons attached to them. There's going to be at least 2 or 3 invisible hydrogens attached to these carbon atoms down here. Let's write that down. At least 2 or 3 invisible hydrogen atoms attached. And we can assume that those are going to be tetrahedral later on. If we look at this nitrogen here, there's a lone pair. So it's either going to be trigonal planar or trigonal pyramidal, one of the two, because there are 3 single bonds attached. The lone pair, however, gives it away that it is trigonal planar. Trigonal pyramidal because of the lone pair. Trigonal pyramidal. Now, if we work our way up, the rest of the ends and bends are actually also tetrahedrals. They have 4 single attachments. But if we look at the carbon hexagon chamber, those have a single bond and a double bond. So most of these are going to be trigonal pyramidal, which is 3 bond attachments. So if we're looking over here, 3 bond attachments, trigonal pyramidal. Alright, now I'm going to quickly draw the Vesper theory molecular geometry of a Butylite. As I do, I'd like to go over just some background and the basic functions and interactions of a Butylite. A Butylite has one primary use, and there are a lot of other drugs with similar effects. It is used to return an irregular heartbeat to a normal speed, those that already have a prolonged QT interval, which we can observe through an electrocardiogram, one of the TV screens that shows the rate at which the heart is beating from movies and stuff. And since it's a class 3 antiarrhythmic drug, that means it generates potassium channel blocking properties, which suppress irregular patterns of the heart. It's also worth noting that most class 3 drugs shouldn't be taken within 3 hours of each other. Lastly, it turns out a Butylite was only recently approved by the FDA in 1996, which I think seems fairly recent. Alright, let me just get back to this molecular theory real quick. Alright, so if we take a look at the stairs again, we're going to draw those additional hydrogen atoms. And we can start to assume that these are all going to be tetrahedral. So, alright. So over here, these are all going to be tetrahedral. They have 4 single bonds attached. So we can look for all the other ones that have 4. There's one, 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 and there's one. Quite a few here. I have an ascending pattern, so there is going to be some patterns in the VSEPR theory, making it easier to label certain things. Now, if we were to look at, say, this nitrogen here, nitrogen, 1, 2, 3 in the lone pair. Spoke about this earlier, and I hope you guys were able to know that it's a trigonal pyramidal. There's not that many. There's only one other trigonal pyramidal, and it's not because it's just a nitrogen. Any central atom with a lone pair and 3 single bonds attached to it is going to be trigonal pyramidal. Now lastly, trigonal planar. Trigonal planar is going to be over here. There's a carbon with 3 attachments. Double bond here. Note that's not a 4th attachment there because that would be tetrahedral. Alright guys, thanks for watching and listening. I hope you were able to learn or at least refresh yourselves on some stuff.